Hey guys, it's Chris from Highline Guitars, and you're watching another Quick Tips for Luthiers. In this week's episode, I'm going to talk about the technique I use for doing a glow-in-the-dark inlay. So come on a little closer and I'll show you how I do it. To do this technique, what you're going to need is some glow-in-the-dark powder, and I'm using strontium aluminate, and this stuff is widely available all over the internet. It's inexpensive. It's a very powerful glow-in-the-dark powder. It glows very strong, very intensely, and for a very long period of time. The one thing you should be aware of is it does require UV light to be activated. So you have to expose your glow-in-the-dark inlay to UV light in order to store up that energy so that later on when it's dark, it'll glow. And obviously we don't like to stick our guitars out in the sunlight, which is where you get UV light. But what you can do is you can get a UV LED flashlight and use that to charge the powder or your glow inlay. So this is about an ounce and it comes in a lot of different colors. This happens to be the fluorescent blue, which I believe glows the longest. All the different colors glow for different lengths of time, but the blue, when charged, will glow for a couple of hours. So that's the powder. Then you'll need some, this is just thin super glue, CA glue, cyanoacrylate, and then some thick CA glue. And as an option, you can also get, this is an instant set accelerator, which you can spray onto the super glue to cure it fast. Now, the technique that I'm going to demonstrate, I'm just going to be doing it on some scrap wood here. And what I've done is I drilled some 1/4 inch diameter holes about an 1/8 inch deep. And these would represent fret marker dots. So you could actually do this technique with really any sort of inlay design. Really your limitation is your imagination. So I'm just going to demonstrate how it would look if I was doing fret marker dots. To use the technique, you'll need a small knife and a small paintbrush just to kind of keep things clean. And the way I do this is I will take a knife and I will put a little bit of the powder on the knife. And then I will just start to sprinkle it into the inlay. You don't have to completely fill it. All you really need to do is make sure that you have the entire shape, the perimeter of the shape, filled, because really that powder is really strong stuff, so it doesn't have to fill. There's really no point to that. And then I just use this brush to kind of clean it up, make sure I get all of the powder into the hole that I am going to be filling. And you don't have to be absolutely perfect here, but you know, being a luthier, perfection is something you always are striving for. Then I take the thin super glue, and what I will do is put a couple of drops, just enough to kind of fill it. Now, if you're in a big hurry, you can spray a little bit of the accelerator on to get it to instantly dry. But I'm not in a big hurry, so I'm just going to let this dry on its own, and that'll probably take about 10 to 15 minutes. Now, once the thin CA glue has dried, I'm going to apply several drops of the thick CA glue. And what this will do is allow me to build the surface of the CA glue proud of the surface of the wood so that I can sand it down level. So I just put in enough to completely cover it and to rise up proud above the surface of the wood. And you may be wondering, why am I using CA glue to do this? Since if you read the instructions for the powder, you'll notice that they use epoxy. Well, epoxy works well. The only trouble with epoxy is a lot of the different two-part epoxies, when you mix up the two, the resin and the hardener, it has a bit of an amber color to it. So if you're counting on maintaining the color that you see when you order this stuff, epoxy can actually discolor it so that instead of looking like a nice bright blue, it'll look more like a green. So I use the CA glue, cyanoacrylite super glue, instead. And it works just as well, but it's absolutely clear. There's no amber tint to it, just water clear. So I can preserve that color. And it seems to work just fine. Now here I'm going to go ahead and hit this with the accelerator. And that will dry it very, very quickly. And once it's dry, I can sand it with some sandpaper. And here I'll just use some 80 grit to make quick work of it. But I'll sand it level, and then I'll show you what it looks like when it glows. Okay, so once the CA glue has dried, and it only takes like 20 to 30 minutes, or even faster if you're using the accelerator, I can sand the surface down so that it's flush with the surrounding wood. And the way I do that is I just take some 80 grit sandpaper, wrap it around a piece of scrap maple, and then sand it smooth. And if I want to, I can work up through the grits all the way to like 220. Once that's done, I can apply stain or boiled linseed oil or anything I want to the surrounding wood. But at this point, the inlay is complete and it's ready to do its job of glowing in the dark. And as I said before, the way you do that is you expose this and charge it to UV light. Now the problem is, luthiers and guitarists don't like to let their guitars sit in direct sunlight because of the effect it can have on the surrounding finish, not to mention the glues and so on. Another way to charge this is to use a UV LED flashlight. And fortunately, most of the companies that sell the dye powder also offer these UV LED flashlights. And they range in price from cheap to super, super cheap. In fact, when I ordered my powder, it came with a free, just one of these cheapo LED UV flashlights. And all you have to do is just expose it, and it doesn't take but a quick, couple of seconds just to get it exposed, and that will charge up the powder that's captured in the CA glue. And then, voila, a nice bright glow. And that glow should last a good 30 to 40 minutes. So if you're a guitar player, all you have to do is carry that little flashlight on you, and when you start to see it running out of energy, just give it a quick charge, and it works really well. So that's the technique I use, and I encourage you to give it a try. As always, for all the materials that I use, I will put links in the description below so that you can go out and find these products and maybe give it a try yourself. So until the next episode of Quick Tips, take care, and we will see you soon.